Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to tonight's class, which is called Winter Wellness, which I feel like is a really good, timely topic because we are in the middle of winter in most areas. I'm assuming this typically I target an audience that's in the US and Canada, so that means it is winter, and where I am at, has been snowing off and on for the last couple of days, so we have probably about 4 to 6 inches of snow on the ground, and so let's get busy talking about this. So winter wellness, stay healthy all winter long. So here are some things about me. I am a certified holistic health coach with the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. This is a online health coaching certification program. It's pretty intense, takes about a year to go through, and they talk to you all about different aspects of health and well-being, nutrition. You have to take a whole bunch of exams, do a bunch of practice coaching, all different kinds of things like that. I have been a doTERRA wellness advocate since 2011 and have spent quite a bit of time studying essential oils for different aspects of health and well-being, as well as supplementation, nutrition, different things like that, healthy cooking, all that kind of stuff. I say on my social media that I'm a dog lover and an avocado lover, and it's true. I love avocados just as much as a lot of people love chocolate. And I'm a dog lover. I do have a dog. She is a little 16-pound black schnoodle, which is schnauzer and poodle, and she's my baby. What else can I say about that? In addition to that, I also have Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid autoimmune disorder, which means that my immune system is a little bit out of whack. And so I've had to work harder than a lot of other people in order to be able to stay healthy, especially during the winter, and to avoid coming down with all of the different bugs that circulate around in the winter as much as possible anyway. Fortunately, I have actually not been sick in over a year and a half now, so I have successfully figured out how to go through a full winter season without getting sick. And a lot of these tips or things that we're going to talk about are things that I've actually done to not get sick. And we will see if hopefully I can get through a second winter season without getting sick. That would really be awesome. So, couple things. Let's take a look here about the common reasons that we get sick in the winter. So, there's a lot of commonalities of things that happen during the winter season, which I feel like are a lot of the reasons why we get sick in the winter. And if you look on this list, and we're going to discuss some of these in a little more detail, you will notice the number one thing that's not here is the cold weather. And I think a lot of times, a lot of us have a tendency to blame cold weather as being the reason that a lot of people get sick in the winter. But my own experience has been that even a lot of people who live in warm environments in the winter, like Texas, parts of California, Florida, other places where it is 50 degrees Fahrenheit and above, typically are still sick in the winter, and they're sick just as much as those of us that live in Utah, Wyoming, Nebraska, Indiana, Illinois, other places where we have a lot of colder weather. And so it's not that the cold weather can't contribute to you getting sick, but I feel like there are a lot of other reasons why we get sicker in the winter. And the first one I feel like is the one that is not addressed enough is we eat too much sugar and processed foods. So if you think about what happens that starts the winter season on October 31st every year, it's Halloween. And what do we do on Halloween? A lot of us go stuff our face with really unhealthy, ridiculous amounts of candy and sugar. And then we come into November and have Thanksgiving, and while we do eat some healthy foods, we have a tendency to again eat a lot of sugar with the pie and desserts and all that kind of thing. Then we go into December and we continue eating more sugar and more processed foods and more junk food. And as a result, these things have a big impact on our immune system, and we other aspects of our health and well-being as well. And then a lot of us get sick and we wonder why we're sick every year because we're constantly eating too much sugar. And I know for a fact that this is something that has happened to me. And I know that one of the reasons I feel like I have now not been sick in a year and a half is that I have cut out 99% of sugar from my life. Yep, you heard that right. In fact, I don't even eat ketchup anymore because it has too much sugar in it. So I still eat fruit and occasionally some honey or maple syrup or some of the natural sweeteners, but I have eliminated all processed sugar from my diet basically. And that has had a really big impact on my health and is probably one of the reasons I have not been sick in such a long time. So, I know some people probably hate me for saying that, but that's the truth. If you are getting sick a lot, and especially getting sick a lot in the winter, you probably want to reevaluate your diet, and part of that is the sugar and the processed foods. And then the next one here is we don't get enough vitamin D, C, and zinc. And these three vitamins are really the core vitamins and minerals that can help keep you well, especially during the winter. So I tell people that most people are probably going to need to take extra supplements of these at least during the winter season. You may not need to take them during the summer. In fact, most of us don't need extra vitamin D in the summer because it's nice and hot outside, it's beachy, we're outside enjoying the sun, that kind of thing. If you do live in an environment that is warm in the winter, then you may or may not need vitamin D in the winter as well. This is kind of under the assumption for most of us, like me, that are in Utah and it's cold and snowy. So you have to kind of evaluate that. And then a suppressed immune system. So, those of us that have autoimmune disorders, like I mentioned, I have one, and I know that a lot of my audience does as well, is that our immune system is suppressed and we struggle with our immune system if you have an autoimmune disorder, which is all the more reason why you need more vitamin D, C, and zinc, and why you should not be consuming too much sugar and processed foods. Then the fourth one is that we don't spend enough time outside, especially if it gets cold and there's lots of snow on the ground. We just think, oh, I don't want to go outside. And we don't exercise enough in the winter a lot of times, unless, of course, you're a big skier, a big snowboarder, or you like to do a lot of ice skating, things like that. I actually am a former semi-pro ice skater. I used to ice skate a lot in junior high and high school, climbed up the ranks, took a lot of lessons, did some ice skating a little bit, started doing a little bit competitively. And interesting fact about me that Nathan Chen, who won the gold medal in the men's ice skating at the last Olympics, actually used to take lessons and skate on the same arena that I did. And I remember seeing him skate when he was like 2 years old and thinking that he was going to win an Olympic medal. So anyhow, in the past, I have exercised a lot in the winter, and I have started going outside more in the winter and just making myself do it. And a couple of tips that I find for those of us that live in a cold environment and you're like, oh, there's too much snow, there's ice. What if I slip and fall? I just don't want to go outside. It's too cold, whatever. Just make yourself go outside and get on your coat, bundle up however you feel like you need to. And even if you just go outside and stand in the snow for maybe 5 minutes and do that 2 or 3 times a day, that can help you to absorb some of that extra outside air and even that cold air, which is really, really good for us. You've probably seen some articles or things starting to circulate online about different things like cold plunging and cold showers and things like that. And so, despite what people think, the spending time outside in the cold or getting access to that cold weather actually can be really good for your immune system and for your overall health. And so you just have to do it. And as far as the exercising, find ways to exercise indoors, do it first thing in the morning, different things like that. I seriously promise that it will help make you have better health and avoid getting sick all the time. Okay, so then a couple of daily routines to stay well. So this list here includes some of the same things that I previously mentioned, but these are some of the different things that I have done to stay well. So number one is exercising. I make myself go to the gym first thing in the morning and go swimming about 3 times a week. And yes, I even do it in the winter. So, that's just how I feel like that's just a must for me. And then when I'm at home, I do things like I have a stationary bike. I also, sounds a little crazy, but I bought a Nintendo Switch and I do not use it for the reasons a lot of other people use it for. I don't use it primarily for games or things like that. I use it primarily for exercise. I have the Zumba and the home fitness, kickbox, fitness, and the ring and the sports. And I have like all the exercise programs, and I use all of those during the winter even more than in the summer to get adequate amounts of exercise. Then I use a variety of different essential oils, and we'll discuss some of the ones that I typically use the most during the winter. I also take extra vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. And with vitamin D, another secret that you can sometimes try that can stave off getting too sick is you can take a really high dose vitamin D, like a lot higher than what you would normally take if you were not sick, for just a couple of days. Something you don't want to take for a long time frame, but you can take it for a few days and hopefully help stave off or help you get better much quicker if you do actually get sick. This is one of the secrets to short framed illness as well, is taking a higher dosage of vitamin D for just a couple of days. Then infrared sauna. And this is something that I didn't even realize the power of: infrared sauna, infrared lights. I actually have an infrared sauna in my house that I bought, a portable one. Got it on a Black Friday sale so it was in 2022. And that, I believe, is also one of the other reasons why I have not been sick, is because I do infrared sauna every single day because it's in my house. And if you don't have one or can't, feel like you can't afford one at the moment, there are ways to use infrared light with smaller devices. You can find spas and go to infrared sauna, all that kind of thing. I did actually do another class on infrared sauna that was recorded, that's on my YouTube channel. So if you want to take a better, more dive into infrared sauna, infrared lights, that kind of thing, you can do that. And one of the reasons that I think they typically say that infrared sauna is so effective at helping stave off a lot of the colds and flus and sicknesses is that if you do it properly and you sit in it for long enough, which is about 30 minutes or so, it actually mimics a fever. And so it elevates your body temperature to the point that it's almost like it's mimicking you getting a fever, and that detoxing type effect on your body actually makes it so that you actually can stay well longer and stave off a lot of different illnesses. Then what we put on here is no sugar or processed foods, of course, which I basically already ranted and raved about that a little bit. And then turmeric and garlic. So turmeric is a really good, strong anti-inflammatory. It also is really good for reducing pain naturally, as well as helping with the immune system. And then garlic, most people know that garlic, is in a lot of really good things to help their wellness. And the one I actually didn't put on there as well is like elderberries and elderberry syrup, that kind of thing. And also helps to support the immune system. I just forgot to put it on the PowerPoint. Okay, so let's talk a little bit then now about essential oils. So my first experience with essential oils. So at first, I tried some peppermint and, I thought it was okay, but I didn't get enough training. It mostly sat in my cupboard for a few years. And then I was introduced to a blend called Breathe that I will show you and go over a little bit, because I had some respiratory issues and I got sick a lot, and I couldn't get exposed to anything without getting sick. And this was before I actually knew that I had autoimmune issues. This is before I gave up sugar. This is before I gave up gluten. I've also been gluten-free for going on 11 years, which for somebody with an autoimmune, that was life-changing. And, gradually started to realize there was a lot more going on than just something that essential oils could help with. But ultimately, essential oils did help get me started on that journey to no longer being sick every time I got exposed to something. So how can essential oils help? There's a couple of things. So the first thing is it can help boost and strengthen your immune system, can help support your respiratory system, and it can also help lessen the effects of the inversion outside. So those of you who don't live in Utah, I know a few of you do, are possibly not aware that the inversion and the dirty air that hits Utah every January and February can be really problematic for a lot of us, and basically just creates a lot of dirty air. And even if you live in a bigger city, anywhere really in the US or Canada or even in the world, there's going to probably have some kind of inversion at some point. And essential oils can also help lessen the effects of inversion on you, because inversion is just really not good for your health. And what I actually do with that as well is, if there's a really bad case of inversion outside, I actually will put on a mask when I go outside and walk around and stuff to try to help support my, the lungs and stuff like that. I don't wear masks anymore indoors around people or whatever, because I feel like too much of that can suppress your immune system. If I'm outside and there's a really bad case of inversion or really bad air quality, I put on the mask, and I feel like that kind of helps avoid that too much of that dirty air coming in and getting trapped. Okay, and then, so these are kind of some of the different ways that I like to use essential oils in general. So one is to take a couple of drops and dilute it down. So you want to typically add to some kind of carrier oil like coconut oil or jojoba oil or something like that, and rub it on your chest and then inhale. Or you can rub on the bottoms of your feet and then put some cotton socks on top of it so that it will absorb up into your system. You can also get out the diffuser and diffuse the essential oils with some water into your room and your environment, or do a steam inhale. And this one can be really super effective, especially if you're really starting to get the beginning stages of a cough or something is, starting to hit you right here. You can take 5 to 10 drops and put it in like a mug or cup of some kind, then pour hot water into it and just kind of sit there and go, ah, and inhale the vapors and get that steam going, because that steam combined with the essential oils can really help open up your sinuses. It can help open up your lungs, all that kind of stuff. And that's really the cheap way. There also are different spas and things that sometimes have available things like a eucalyptus steam room, or you could even put some with some baking soda on the bottom of a shower and take a hot shower and then have all the vapors come up and absorb into your lungs, that kind of thing. But it's just that combination of that heat with the oil can do wonders for your lungs and opening up your respiratory system. So a couple of my favorite essential oil combinations, and I will show you what's actually in them off of the thing in just a sec. So we have Breathe, we have On Guard, which are some blends. We have Eucalyptus, which is just a straight one, Peppermint and Lavender, and Air X. And I'm going to stop the share to kind of show those now. So this is just kind of a straight eucalyptus bottle, kind of normal, not a mix. This is Air X, and what Air X does, so there's Air X and Breathe both, and Air X is kind of a newer blend that came out a few years ago, so I didn't have access to Air X originally, so Breathe was kind of the one, the go-to that I went to. The biggest difference is that Air X has a little bit more of a citrus, some citrus oils and some frankincense in it, whereas Breathe focuses more on your mints and your tea tree. It's got, I think, a little bit of lemon, a few things like that in it. And, personally, they're probably pretty interchangeable. I just kind of like to, personally, I like the smell of the Breathe better because it's got that minty type stuff, whereas the Air X has more of the citrus and that kind of stuff. And then you have On Guard, which is a really good one for cleaning your house as well, but it's On Guard's the immune boosting, so it's got like wild orange, cinnamon, clove, eucalyptus, and rosemary in it, and is really the bomb for helping to support your immune system. So what I do is put a couple drops of the Breathe and the On Guard on the bottoms of my feet in the morning, and then put the socks on top so that it absorbs up into my system. And we'll do it every morning during the entire winter season. And then I sometimes will do it at night as well. And then when the summer approaches, a lot of times I don't do it because I find like I don't need it as much. But in the winter, those are basically my go-tos for helping to support the immune system. So now that I've shown you what those look like, let's go back and go over the rest of the screen on here. So a couple of other things. I've hit home a little bit about the sugar and the processed food and the, making sure that you eat healthy all winter long. So these are a couple of my favorite recipes to help you stay well all winter long. And I'm going to go over on the next slides and talk to you a little bit about how I make these recipes when it comes to the food. So the first one is chicken soup with no noodles. A lot of people, will say, oh, I want the chicken noodle soup. Well, as you heard me mention briefly already, I've been gluten-free for almost 11 years, so I don't eat regular noodles at all ever. But I have found that by making a chicken soup recipe that doesn't have the noodles, you don't have the carbs, some of the other stuff. You still get that broth, the chicken, the vegetables, that kind of stuff. And that's really what your body needs to heal and to stay well. And then you can do like different combinations of bone broth, a lentil soup, some kind of like a split pea and ham soup is always really good, especially if you're dealing with, you just had Thanksgiving and Christmas and you have like an extra ham bone. That's a really awesome recipe to make. So let's look at how we do some of these. So the first thing you want to have some kind of a crock pot or an Instapot. If you don't have either a crock pot or an Instapot, I highly, highly recommend you get one. You will use it over and over and over again. Typically, crock pots are a little bit cheaper. Instapots typically are a little bit larger and have some additional features and can actually cook a lot faster. So crock pots are designed for more your slow cooking, put it on in the morning, go to work, come home at night, and it's all ready. Instapots. You can do that, but Instapots are really good because you can make the whole thing and cook it within like sometimes 20 minutes. You can cook a whole thing. And a crock pot, it's going to take a lot longer. And typically, I will use the combinations that I have on here. So I have like a chicken. I will do some carrots, and typically I'm going to do about 1 to 2 carrots per serving. So you have to kind of depend on how many people you're making it for. Chicken, I typically do about 1 normal-sized chicken breast per serving as well. And I typically make 2 to 3 servings at a time, at least for one person. You could also make like a huge pot for multiple people, but I like to also have some leftovers too. So then you can do a couple carrots. Typically we'll put the equivalent of about half an onion per person or so, about 2 or 3 servings, about half an onion, and a couple stalks of celery, and chop those all up. I actually have a pretty nifty chopper that I got at Walmart that just kind of chops it all up. And then you can do optional, you could add some potatoes or rice to it, but I feel like a lot of times it's not necessary. You could also, another combination thing that you could add here that I didn't put on here, but you could put mushrooms in as well. Could be a good combination extra thing to add in there. And or even spinach, actually, I've added before as well. That actually was not a bad idea either. Then you can season with some salt and pepper, or like some thyme, bay leaf, potentially even a little bit of oregano. You can just kind of experiment with some of the different seasonings that, there's a lot of different seasoning mixes out there, but you basically want to season it with some kind of, I find the salt, pepper, thyme, and bay leaf are pretty much the staples. And then if you also want to add in a little oregano, or potentially, even a little bit of cayenne to give it a little bit of a kick, and cayenne pepper can be really good for your immune system too. You can do that. Then bone broth. So bone broth, there are recipes out there where you can actually make your own, but it does actually stink up the house, and in my opinion ends up being a lot more expensive anyway. So what I do is, it really any kind can work, but you can get what's called the Members Mark or the Sam's brand, either from Walmart or from a Sam's Club if you have a Sam's Club membership. And I found that that's the cheapest, and it's often a pretty good quality. So it's not the most expensive. It's, bone broth does cost a little more than, say, like just your typical, like a same quart size of chicken broth as opposed to bone broth. Chicken broth is probably gonna be about $1.50-ish or so, whereas bone broth might be closer to $3. So they are more expensive than just a regular broth. But the biggest difference is that they've slow cooked just the bones, and it absorbs a lot more of the collagen. So it's also really good for, like your skin, your joints, your hair, all that kind of thing, to get that collagen out of those bone broths. And there's a couple ways you can use this. You can just heat it up and just drink it, which I've done that quite a bit, and it works really well. Or you can actually even you can put bone broth in with all the ingredients on any of these soups and make like an actual soup out of it. So that can work too. Next one is like a lentil soup. So the idea behind the lentil soup is you basically are putting that triage of carrots, onions, and celery in there. You're putting in some kind of chicken or vegetable broth or bone broth. You're putting in some lentils and some salt and pepper, or I have also the blend herbs de Provence or other spices, things like, again, the thyme, the bay leaf, things like that. And you can make this as just a straight lentil soup. You can also add in potentially like some ham or chicken if you want to add in the meat, or you can also even add in like a can of tomatoes, can be an extra thing that you can add in, but you don't necessarily have to. And typically, again, what you're going to do with lentils is you're going to use about 1 cup of lentils for every 16 ounces of liquid. So depending on the size of the pot that you're using, you may either use 1 cup or 2 cups of lentils, probably more than likely, unless you have a really large family and need to do a very, very large pot. You probably won't cook more than 2 cups of lentils. And then you'll use, like I said, about 1 to 2 carrots per serving, about half an onion per serving, and a couple stalks of celery. And then I use the chicken or the vegetable broth instead of water. So if I was using 1 cup of lentils, I'm going to use 2 cups of chicken or vegetable broth. If I'm using 2 cups of lentils, I'm going to use 4. Basically going to double the amount of liquid that I'm going to put into the pot and create that like a nice hearty lentil soup. that's really warming and fulfilling. Then you also have the option of doing like a split pea soup, like I mentioned, and this is basically going to follow more or less the same ingredients or same recipe as the lentil soup, except for that instead of doing lentils, you're going to put in raw green peas. And you just can find these in a bag at the store. They have them at Walmart. They're cheap. It's like $1.50 maybe for like a couple pounds, I think. They're not expensive at all, and that's another reason that this makes a really good meal. And then, like I said, the ham is optional, but it makes a really good one if you have like a ham bone left over from like a Thanksgiving or Christmas meal, or even if you don't have a ham bone left over, you can buy a little ham and put it in there, or you don't have to have the ham. Or technically, you could probably even put something like bacon in there too as well. It'd probably be pretty good. I think I've tried that a time or two also, but so these are just some of the warming soup recipes. And the main idea is that you want to nourish your body with stews and soups and things that are healthy and good for you. You could do things like even like a chicken stew, like a beef stew, different things like that, depending on what your vegetable soup. But, good, nice, warming, healing foods rather than junk full of sugar and processed food. So that's the idea. So then what's next? These are a few of different links. I can put those in the chat as well so that you can copy them down or save them. If you want to do an actual free one-on-one consult where we actually talk about your specific health challenges, we can do that. That's the link with my calendar, meet.annalaurabrown.com. If you need to actually buy some essential oils, that's my essential oil link. And if you aren't sure what to get, that kind of thing, we can also do a call and talk more details about that. And then this is my Thrive Market link. I put that up there. Just Thrive Market is a really good online grocery store that's membership based where you can get like higher quality things like vitamin D, vitamin C, throat sprays, elderberry syrup, different things like that. So I put that up there, and I'm just going to copy all these links into the chat so that you have it. And that is basically pretty much going to be it. So I'm going to copy these into the chat, and then I will pause the recording and see what questions any of you that are on here live have for me. Okay. Let's see here. Let me